Louise. It's
Thank
an
you.
honor to have you here for the premiere episode of AI After Work.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
We were really scared you wouldn't really make it here
Yeah.
tonight because we just heard from you like 30 minutes before the recording, but you had a bit of a stressful day, right?
Yeah, I did. And I noticed that I haven't responded to you, that I'm coming. I was very happy about the question of me to coming here, but then something happened today. I've been hurting myself in the summertime doing sailing. So I had to go to the ER today.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, but
And what happened? How did you hurt yourself?
I was out sailing with my kids, and we had a bit of a struggle with the sails. So I had to make them go out the boat, and then when I was kicking it was a really small boat, kicking off from the place where I've left them, I slipped and I landed on my fingertips.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, and I was like, ouch.
So you hurt your fingers, basically.
Yes.
And that sounds super scary for like a computer nerd like me. You know, if you can't use your fingers, you basically can't do anything.
Yeah. And for a sailing nerd as me, it's a really big problem. Yeah.
And thanks for the last time, you know, in the AI agenda meeting recently and the offentliga rummet and everything. I must say I'm really impressed with all the like comments you make and the statement you make. It's always very articulate and well thought out, it sounds. So I'm really glad to have you here, and especially with your background as well. And perhaps we should quickly just introduce what this is with the AI After Work and who we are, and then we get back to you and have a bit of a deeper description of your background and who you are.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so this is the premiere episode of AI After Work. So it's a podcast about AI as an after work. And essentially this is all about being digging deeper, digging under the surface of what AI is all about to bring it into society. From the most technical dimensions to the typical challenges of operationalizing or being on a middle manager level to philosophical topics even, what we need to think about. So my name is Henrik, and I'm going to be one of the hosts here, Henrik Göthberg. My passion has really been on this operational middle manager, taking the vision and trying to understand what does that mean in terms of driving it, and then working with super techy guys to making it happen together with the normal business people.
Yeah. So, and I guess I'm the super techy guy. And I think if you've seen this kind of Conway-Venn diagram, it's kind of the definition of a data scientist. It's basically have three circles in it.
Yes.
One is the more theoretical, technical part. One can be the more engineering, and another can be the more domain expert business type of people. And I think that's like a good three-circle representation of who we are here. Also someone understanding the business side of things, and also having a domain expert like Louise here as well, which also, of course, is very knowledgeable in AI.
And I think this Venn diagram is a representation for the AI after work, because in order to live in this new core, so if imagine going data and AI first means we all live in the middle. We come from different disciplines, but this is the future world. So now let's talk with all these people who come from the different angles to see what is the future all about, and what do we need to do now to get moving.
It's a really good mission.
Yeah. And after work means a little bit less politically correct.
Yeah.
Being able to speak your mind, speak freely, talk about the real challenges. Yeah. That's an ambition, at least.
Yeah, and in English. We have to talk about that.
And also very improvised, you know, there's nothing reversed or edited or anything.
But I must pick up on speaking English, because you told me something that where you work, maybe you should introduce yourself where you work, and I hold on that question.
Yeah, so I work at the SKR, or in Swedish SKR. So that's Swedish regions and municipalities, regioner och kommuner in Sweden. And they have an association that drives their biggest and most important issues towards the government and the EU and stuff like that. And we are also taking care of things that being a region or a municipalities, how do you run it? How do you keep it up? And how do you make welfare for everybody in Sweden.
So
we are not allowed to talk English. So we have to translate everything in English to Swedish. So why is that? Yeah, because we live and work in Sweden, of course, and we have to talk to our members, the municipalities and regions in their own language. So one of the things that we work a lot with, because I'm chief of digital transformation, you can say, we have to constantly translate.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I can understand the purpose that on a municipality everybody should be inclusive. We are in Sweden, but from the global data and AI scene and where the talent is and the technology is all about, it's really English is the international language of data, I guess.
And you have to be on the international stage as well.
Yes.
And have to talk about what's important from Sweden, because AI is also a global question. Yes. And there is something interesting in our work together in the AI agenda. That's about to tell the story about how Sweden are going to work with AI.
I'm looking forward to speaking more about that. It's, I think, a very important initiative. I'm glad that we are doing that in Sweden.
Yeah, but I'm just... with the language, I'm so happy that you said that you will help me if I'm struggling with the words, because that's basically it. Yeah. I'm not talking English so much, so thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah. And just to close up a bit about what the AI After Work podcast is really all about, I mean, we can basically shortly say it's we're trying to bring you the latest and the state-of-the-art techniques in AI, but also make sure to have that from a business point of view to make it really understandable for how organizations can really make use and operationalize AI properly. And I think also by having the right domain experts in place like you. So we can really understand all the aspects of it to have a proper understanding of how to really accelerate the use of AI in Sweden.
And may I ask you, why do you think this is important? Or why do we decide to invest time in this?
So just to give a very brief background about myself, I've been working with AI and doing research in AI for like 20 years and did a PhD in Linköping a long time back and been working at a number of companies like Spotify and now Paltaring and heading up a research group there. But what we can really see when working with AI for that long is that most people have a really strange understanding of what AI is. They usually have the view that media portrays, which is the Matrix and the Terminators, and the strange view that AI is about killer robots when it's really not. And something we really try to bring on, and I'm sure we will speak more about, is really using AI together with humans. And that's really how we maximize the benefits of AI. So that's why I think it's really important to have this kind of podcasts, trying to, in an easy to understand and informal way, just share knowledge and have fun talking about AI, so people have the proper understanding of all the huge possibilities with AI, but also have that in a proper, realistic way. So I think that's...
Yeah, and my 2 cents why I decide now let's invest some time hosting this on our spare time is that I've been coming from... now I'm working a lot with Scania, and I used to work with Vattenfall for many years. And in sitting in this sort of perfect storm of the traditional IT, we need to digitize the whole energy ecosystem we talked about in Vattenfall. And the hardship is really on and the complexity on the middle manager level, which is essentially about this Venn diagram, that basically we have come from the business side or the process side and the IT side, and we don't really live in the new core yet. And it's not until we have this mind shift and start bringing these different disciplines together that this will work. So this is why I'm so passionate when we say, let's talk about this and let's make sure we invite guests to cover the different perspectives. I think it's great. So I'm really passionate.
And we were thinking quite a bit, who should be our inaugural guest. Yes. And we actually had Louise in the top of the list, and you were the first that we actually asked to come here.
So happy for that.
Yeah. So that was, so who's number 2, number 3, number 4 if Louise doesn't want to, cannot make it? And then you spared us that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. We're really grateful.
Just to give a bit of my view of, I've known you for some time, and we've been meeting at different AI events. But as a very techie person myself, I still have a huge interest in understanding the human mind, the psychology, and like the social aspects of how to really use AI. And also have a strong interest in religion and theology, and that is a very fascinating background that you have as well. So with that, perhaps you can very briefly try to describe a bit about your background and who Louise Callenberg is.
Yeah, and that's a big question. So thank you for that one.
We know sailor.
Yeah, you know the sailor one. It's how I want to interpret myself. No, it's a. I think always when giving a question like that, it's a hard question to answer because it's in this context. Who am I? But my background in theology and in psychology, it's basically because I was studying to become a priest.
Really?
And why that? You can ask, because before that I was working at Primraf, a refinery in Sweden, and with making the operations work basically, and that was my first meeting with business and how to make money and how to efficient workflow and stuff like that. And I was like, something is missing. And I realized that I wanted to work with what's matter to people. So I started to basically look at the university courses and what could probably make me find that course. So it was Religion A. So I started that with that study, and it struck me the first week that this was the most interesting thing I've met. And what I met was you're asking what humans like us, how we interpret our life and how we do it in context with others, and how much culture basically culture and the society around us are maybe forcing us to make some innovations or act in a way, but we think we are free. So what's the responsibility in that, and stuff, questions like that. So it made me very interested in how we work in the society, but also with a religious theme here, because I also was thinking about how can I work with people and meet them in different stage in life. So priest seems like an option. So I started studying to ministry as well. And in Sweden you have that, you have to be a academic theology course, and you have to have the church stuff. But then I realized in church you can't innovate. It's really hard.
It's sad, but
it's a bit sad, but there are reasons for that as well. And I know myself as a change person. I have a big passion about change.
Innovation and change is something clear.
And I think that you always can ask yourself, how do you work with people and make a better place? You know. So I started to question my choice working in church, and where can I use this platform? So I find leadership. So
leadership, yeah.
That's my background, you can say.
And how did you come to where you are today? So
from studying theology and wanted to become a priest. I have a sister working as a priest, so I have also followed her work, and it's a fantastic work. Of course, you meet people in different stage of life, and you have on work time the opportunity to talk about philosophy and what really means to things. Actually, I was pregnant and could use some money. So there was a job, and I have like 1 year left, open for to become like a secretary general for a scout movement. So that's where I started to practice leadership in an NGO organization. And then I have worked with several of them. And so I have my background in the industry that I really saw what automation and data and how to optimize and then the theological stuff with what's the purpose of everything and how do you work with the human mind and our relation to the other world, so the world around us. So
I'm really interesting coming, from a religious, track into leadership, and I know you have a number of awards, like you've been nominated for like the Framtidens chef, the chef of the future, so to speak.
That's true.
And you had something called like the Chief Happiness Officer space. Yeah. What's that? That's
my own blog that I'm where I have my thought about leadership and how you drive change. And my motivation for that is I think that if you have happy people working in your workspace, you can achieve everything, basically.
That sounds like a great goal,
doesn't it? And but it's kind of hard because we humans are different, and you have to have some techniques to make it happen. And then I'm sharing just my ideas about that. And I did that because I have 2 blogs actually since like 17 years ago. I started my first one.
17 years?
Yeah, it's a long time.
Did blogs exist?
No, sorry.
You called it something else?
I did. It was email. Yeah, no. But so I have always writing about how it is to become a mother, or how to raise kids, or how to just live. But when I started to write about work issues, I noticed they didn't really match, because my more existential pieces were not really that what do you call it, genre? Genre, yeah.
Try that.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I have to
your cup of tea.
Yeah, so I have to make it more
and I don't know you, so I'm so curious how you met, but also how is your view into the whole AI scene, because you're quite connected now in several of these different very important initiatives. So how did you guys meet, and how did you come into this scene?
I don't remember the first time actually. Was it the AI agenda work, or was
it was AI innovation, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that was the first. Or did they start at the same time? Well, there are a lot of initiatives, so for
the viewers who might not know, so what do you do in the AI scene? So we can connect the audience.
So for me, I think it's important to try to do what you can to just deliver and explain the meaning of AI and see what you can do to help drive AI. And there are a number of national initiatives and European initiatives to try to do that. So we probably can speak more about that later, but some of them are the AI Innovation of Sweden that just recently, this day, actually yesterday, I believe, changed name to AI Sweden.
Yeah.
And we also have the other initiative called AI Agenda. We have the Offentliga Rummet and things like that to speak about. But perhaps, Louise, what's your view of AI Sweden, as it's now called?
I love that initiative. I think it's so important that we gather all the regions in Sweden and the municipalities around that question. How can we use AI to make a better Sweden?
Yeah, exactly.
You can say. And what we're trying to do in AI Sweden, as I understand it, is to make us not only talk about AI, but to use it. And it's kind of hard because you have a lot of legal issues in Sweden that you have to address, and you have to have like cases so you can, show people, that decision makers, what's wrong with our legal system,
Sure.
And you also have to manage data. And in Sweden, we are not so good on sharing data, but we are good to manage our own data in our own way. Mm-hmm. So in the initiative of AI Sweden, as we call it now, we meet and find project that could help us solve this kind of problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super important initiative, I think. And, it's a government-funded project with hundreds of millions in funding. And now, starting off with a central organization and now also starting up a number of regional, speaking about SKR, nodes as well. So I think we're up to 6 nodes now, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Trying to make sure that we really capture the local needs as well in what industries they have and how we can help with data and AI to really accelerate their growth.
And it's a collaborative initiative as well. That's why we met, basically.
Exactly. Really important stuff. And
an AI agenda is what is that? How do you?
You want me to answer? Yeah, I can give you an idea of it. But we, of course, want to make sure that also politicians and the government really understands, how we can accelerate AI. And my usual, when I go out speaking about AI, I'm trying to explain the situation in the world. And people, believe and think that AI is, really prominent and driven by US and China, which is partly true. But if you look at it more closely, you can see it's basically the big tech giants. It's the Google, the Facebook, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, or the Chinese companies, the Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and so forth. They are really accelerating in a rate that is staggering. Unfortunately, most other companies, and especially in Europe, is not really keeping up with that. So that is some piece of information that we really need to talk about and make people understand. And we need to accelerate also in Europe and in Sweden our use and coordination of AI. And I think that's really one of the top goals of the AI agenda, trying to come up with some number of suggestions, action points to take that we can speak to politicians about and to other organizations and really demonstrate how to best make use of AI. Would you say that's a good description?
Yeah, yes, really good. Yeah, and to come together in Sweden from different sectors is really the Swedish way, I believe. And we are talking about how we can collaborate and have like a line that we are following together, but not doing the same stuff, because that would be impossible. But I think that the AI agenda is also interesting to lay beside the initiative of AI innovation or AI Sweden, because AI agenda is trying to make the collaborative talk, that we have. As I always wanted to lay on the table, this is like a movement. So we have all to be a part of the movement and ask ourselves, what is my part of making AI possible to use in Sweden? And it's so interesting that you point out that big companies, because that's basically how we think about those who run the scene, But isn't it like, well, maybe you can answer this, isn't it that Sweden and the public sectors, because we have so much data, so we have like an what do you call it, opportunity and a potential to like be a really superpower in using data.
I think Sweden has so
to
many
support, lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let me now throw some fuel on the fire.
Yeah, please.
Because what's the real challenge here? Because at the one hand side, we have great people or techie understands this. And of course, we need to push the whole agenda with politicians for investments and stuff like that. But I think it's a big pink elephant in the room here, that on the operational level out in the organizations, people are so far away from understanding how to get started, how to do this. So if I'm a little bit rude, I think AIAW Sweden is talking about AI 2030 and the innovation agenda. And I think we need an AI 2020 agenda. Where do we get started? I mean, this is where I'm coming from, the communities and open source discussions that I want to have, peer-to-peer between different corporations and public sectors. How do you do it? And if I'm now throwing the fire to the public sector, I see a lot of talk on what AI is all about and all this. And at the same time, as you're highlighting, a couple of companies are they have left the industrialization curve and going into the data and AI first curve, and they are truly accelerating, but we haven't even done the pivot to start innovating as pioneers on the first curve. So that was my throwing some fire.
That's the truth, I believe.
Yeah, let's talk the truth.
Yeah, you told it. You're so right. And isn't it about competence?
Yes.
And how can we make managers understand what's AI is and data, how you use it, and how do you start? So we asked that question for 1.5 years ago together with Caroline Andersson at Governo. So we started to together with KTH at the time to find out AI course for chiefs and decision makers. And not that AI element, because that's a really good course as well, but that's really elements for the nerds. Yeah, elements of AI, yeah. If you want to know basic about the technology. But we wanted to have a course that's more light in a way, but that's get you started. So we looked at these courses at MIT and stuff like that. And now we have launched it. So I think today, actually, 3rd of September was the first ending of one of those courses. So we are so keen to see how that went. So we have I don't know exactly how many, but we have had a really strong interest for that. But that's our way to make that happen, because it's so true. Without any knowledge, you can't do this.
And I guess in Sweden, we have big opportunities and potential, as you say, and we have a strong digitalization already, perhaps not that proper use of AI yet, but at least we have some of the prerequisites, so to speak, of having a lot of data and digitalization available and a high level of education. And I guess the course you mentioned, that was in SKR? Or?
Yeah. It's we have it together with AI Sweden.
Oh, okay. And perhaps people don't all know, what SKR really is.
No, maybe not.
And you work there as a innovation officer, so to speak, of digital innovation. Yeah. But if you were to just briefly describe what SKR is.
SKR, SKR, the Swedish region and municipalities. We are the association for them. It's an organization with every region and every municipality in Sweden. They are member. So it's free of choice, but everybody is with us. And we are we are an association with, I don't know the English word, but kollektivavtal, arbetsgivarperspektiv.
It's a hard one to translate.
Yeah. So we are helping the municipalities and regions to run the business, you can say, and also to be a part in the Swedish model when you talk about salaries and what's the legal stuff in being a employed person and an employee organization, of course. And we are also an organization that take all our regions and municipalities questions that we want to have change in Sweden to be able to give welfare to everybody in Sweden and talk to the government, basically. So in my area, it's the question about digitalization.
And what is your responsibility and main focus areas, you would say, in SKR?
Well, it's digital renewance, we call it, and development. And we have both the question about how to use AI and data analysts and stuff like that, but also to give out reports and we have a strategy in Sweden in SKR that we call Utveckling in digital tid. That's giving us a strategy for how to make it work in Sweden in leadership and organizations questions, legal question, architecture questions, infrastructure questions, and also the service. And we also ask people in Sweden how they respond to the digital service that we lend out to them, and also how employees react to digitalization. So we are kind of a analysis.
And then, given your background, about driving change and transformation, especially in these Corona times, I guess, and you also have to handle all the healthcare issues and how to transform that part of the society that we do have. And as Henrik said, why don't we have this already? Why are we so far behind perhaps some of the tech companies, and why is it not happening in SKR? What would you say the main bottlenecks in SKR are to be able to make use of data and AI to a greater extent?
Yeah, it's perhaps a question about how our municipalities and region work. That's one question. And then another question is how we as an organization use it, data and AI. And I can answer them both with Sweden was really early in digitalization of the public sector to use, just databases and stuff like that. Journal systems. We were really good on that innovation as well. And like personnummer, social security number. It's a Swedish innovation. So we have been really good at stuff like that. But now, technology want to connect sources, info sources like that. And we don't have legal support for that, because the legal system that we have or the laws that we have in Sweden, they really support like digitalization in the 90s and stuff like that. So now when the technology is going faster, we have to change the system and have new laws. And it's not so easy in Sweden, because we like, to be really, really sure on how why we're going to change something, and
then have consensus, of course.
And consensus, yes. And we also like to do utredningar. Pre-studies, yes, and think together, really. And at the same time, the world is on speed. So that's really our problem today. So we have to have another way to manage to make the
become more agile, so perhaps, or
but the fundamental stuff that you need to change. So you have to have structure, you have to have finance, you have to have the laws in place, and you have to have a government that can change.
But what you're highlighting,
but still be really trustworthy, of course.
So safety and trust, I guess, is super important.
Super important.
So I think what I'm hearing now from the public sector SKR perspective, it's the same fundamental challenges as living in the middle of the storm in a corporation like Vattenfall or something like that.
Yes, and it's the same.
And this has been my personal journey and trying to understand and even changing the mindset on how this leadership and change needs to go about. So I have a background being consultant. I even came into working with Vattenfall as a consultant within the business and data BI space at that time, but moved more and more into the whole fundamental data-driven and move into the groups level. And what my key takeaways here is that the traditional sort of approach, we are here, now we do a gap analysis and a to-be, and we do a transformation project, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
So for me, it has been to how do I orchestrate an engine and continuous learning?
Exactly.
How do I orchestrate community and drive with different mechanisms that is completely different to Tayloristic type leadership? And you could call it agile, but essentially I think the most important topic is the fancy word DevOps. So our business will continuously be developing and operating at the same time.
Yes, I think that's so right.
And now you have our budgets, our line management, run spend, and project management. And now we need to do something else.
Yeah, we need to do something completely different. And I think that's why I'm into these questions, because it's about leadership change, and it's how to make people engage in the vision.
Yes.
And try to have an organization with a culture that you have to be able and have the right to test and have a courage in a way, and you have to trust your employees that they can find the best way to make it work. And that's not the culture that we have in the public sector.
No, and ultimately now we are...
Or at Vattenfall.
This is one of these goosebumps. I get goosebumps opportunities when something is happening and oh shit. Right? Yeah. For me, what I've been trying to figure out together with friends and peers, community, is these mechanisms. So basically focusing on installing the right mechanisms or the right sort of that will then make this self-propelling. So when I try to go in and do the consultant thing, to be gap analysis project, the nice Gantt charts, it's too complex because it goes across everything. So here now, what those mechanisms are and how you build an engine that then self-propels. That has been my sort of experiment for the last 10 years to figure that out.
Good questions.
So
me too.
Yeah.
Well, if we solve this here now, that would be really nice. But I guess that's a bit tough. But
today we had all my work group put together with my colleague. We were actually talking about how do we take our way of working, because we are going agile in our way. And we have worked so hard with that, and it's kind of hard with we don't make any software. We make words, only words.
But you make software in the beginning now because that's an essential part of public service, how you serve.
Yeah, of course. But in SKR we just work with we have an opinion.
Okay, you mean from the SKR perspective?
Yeah, from the SKR perspective, yes. But we have been challenge ourselves with how can we, stop being that lonely lonely expert that sit and think about how to change, and how do we transpond our way of working with, engage the regions and the municipalities in our way of work.
So this is the mechanism to figure out, to rethink what is our core purpose and how will we execute that.
Yes.
And my 2 cents, knowing nothing of how you work, but stealing from what we do in Vattenfall and in Scania, it's the same challenge, right? Huge corporation, fantastic niche pockets where we do fantastic stuff, but how to get that across. All of a sudden now we start thinking more about, okay, how do we become facilitators, orchestrators,
exactly.
A house of open source. So we are talking a lot now of let's learn from the development community around open source. Can we create that mindset, not only about open data, but open source processes, ways of working, that basically then puts you in a different role? And this is also a little bit, I think, what the head office role can be in a big corporation towards the local office, or what the state is towards the municipality. It's a different mindset here.
Yes, it's a different, and that you together mind out what are we going to do, and then try and learn and be curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking about together, I think that's an important topic. And some people have this view of AI being something that replaces humans. Another can think of AI as a way to augment humans and make them more efficient. And we just heard, for example, today in the morning news how nurses basically are quitting the jobs because it's too high workload and the working environment is not really good, and they have to do a lot of administrative kind of repetitive and boring tasks. And what's your view on that? How do you think AI will more replace humans, or will it actually be a tool that can actually make humans work more efficiently and focus on the right other things? Or
it can make the workload much easier to handle. And you can use AI to have a help in decision making. As a nurse or as a manager, it really is the same thoughts that we have. They are not going to take any jobs. We need every person in the welfare system to work for the public sector. And the problem today is that we have to lay a lot of time and effort on data and administration.
Yes.
And the boring stuff, you can automate it.
So remove the boring parts.
Remove it.
Let people do that.
Yeah, and try to think about what's the purpose of our work. Well, it's to meet people with problems and try to solve their problems.
The social aspect, the psychology aspect, right?
Yeah. So if you have time to meet other people and try to think, how can I use data and information in a way that helps me help others? Yeah. Then you have your purpose with AI in the public sector. And also if you want to how do I work? How do I use all competence that you have in school? You have a lot of competence, different competence, but you have the question about the scheme. It's really hard. Today it's a teacher doing that. Is that really, you have room, you have competence, you have pupils, and then you have a person today that's sitting and trying to map it up. You don't have to use that.
I think this is so vital in this conversation around why we need, if it's AI is replacing jobs, it's replacing administrative tasks, and also then going back to understanding what AI is right now.
Yeah.
What the purpose is there is we are not talking science fiction, general AI. We are talking narrow AI. What does that mean, Anders?
Yeah, and that's one of the classical misunderstandings of AI. They still think, about the Matrix thing or the Terminator can do anything. But in reality today, AI is very, very different from humans. So there are some things that AI can do really well, and there are other things that humans can do really well. And to just give a simplified view of that, AI can really go through a huge amount of data very quickly, but with a rather shallow understanding. But the level of understanding is increasing, but it's not to the extent that human can do it. So human can have a much deeper understanding and put things in context to all the background knowledge that humans have. And one of the classical examples to speak about SKR and about the healthcare system, and in Peltarian also worked with radiologists that have to, for example, create a treatment plan for cancer patients. They can spend time going through hundreds of CAT scan images or MRI images, but in reality, an AI can do that so much more efficiently. Going through images is something that AI can do really well today. And then the human can focus on the more important things, how to really create a treatment plan, given all the background knowledge that the human expert have, and then spend time on that instead. So I think that's a great example of how you can use AI to take the boring parts out of the tasks and let human focus on the important stuff.
The happy stuff.
Yeah.
Meeting others.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally understand what you're after, and it's so important to have that. What's the use of AI in public sector? Not think about it's a super robot.
But do we put now, when we say AI, we love to put hyped words and labels on everything, because ultimately here, aren't we simply talking about different things to take away optimizing decisions or optimizing workflows, taking away administrative burden, where technology is actually better at doing that part. And in reality, who signed up to be a doctor? Who signed up to be a teacher? Who signed up to even to be a municipality worker to flip papers compared to sort of help society, help a patient, or teach kids? So I think it's back to basics that AI will help. And I think also here, I think there needs to be some sort of AI, but also understand it from the different perspectives of automation, et cetera, et cetera.
And you also ask an important question, who is going to use it and benefit of it? So that's really important to have when you're talking about AI, because of course there are going to be those who find a cool thing that you can use AI for that's not supporting that purpose.
Cool. I'd love to get into some more, interesting and I think favorite topics that you have, like AI ethics and religion and connection to that. But before we do that, and just try to close up a bit about the SKR, thinking. If you were to think in like best case scenario in like 10 years in 2030, how would you see SKR working then?
With AI?
Or in general?
In general? Well, I hope that we have made a process really together with our municipality and regions and the government to together explore and take forward what do you call it? Spelplan.
The playing field.
Play field, yeah, and everything that we want, how we want it to work, so we can make data useful to solve our really big problems in Sweden, and make us useful for people. So I hope that we then in 10 years have achieved that.
Much better healthcare system, perhaps, where humans can actually work with the good things that they can do.
And if you go to the everyday life for humans in Sweden, I think they will, find it's easier to connect or have the right response from the welfare system, or when you try to build a house, it's not hard, it's easy. So stuff like that.
Cool. Should we move into the ethics thing? I'm very eager to move into that.
Let's not miss the opportunity when we have such a guest today.
So let me set up a bit, and I can speak about some research project we're doing at Peltarian, and we're working with medical data like journal text, patient journal text, for example, and then trying to use AI for doing things like trying to predict should we prescribe antibiotics or not, for example. And then today's AI can perhaps make a prediction, but it can't really explain well, but we can improve the explainability, and that's actually one of the research field we're spending a lot of time with. But there are a lot of problems with working with sensitive data like this. Of course, we don't want to endanger any kind of integrity, privacy problems with this type of data. And we certainly don't want to make like AI making a decision that is based on like biases and the wrong kind of decision. And perhaps we can just start the discussion from a very philosophical point of view. And let me set up the trolley problem. Perhaps some of you out there have heard about this, but it's basically the idea that you have a train coming down the track, and you're standing besides the track, and you can see that there are 5 people tied up to the track in some down a path down the track, and you can see they will basically be killed. But you're standing by the switch, so you can potentially flip the switch. The train takes another side track, and then it's only one person tied to the track. Now you have to make the decision: should you flip the switch or not? And there are a number of like moral considerations here. Have you heard about this problem?
Yes.
What's your initial thought? Should the person flip the switch or not?
Well, that's a question, because if I say yes now, does it make me a potential murderer? Because that's really what's happening to that person.
Exactly.
Taking one's life by purpose. Or if you don't do anything, you can always say, well, I didn't kill them, it was the train. But the philosophical question here is, do you see what's going to happen? Aren't you responsible then? Anyway,
aren't you equally responsible for taking no action at all? Yeah,
doing nothing. And if you are taking this to today's topic, if we don't use AI in public sector to help humans have a better life in Sweden, are we responsible for the missed opportunity then?
Yeah, exactly.
So
not doing the investments and innovation could actually be a sign of taking no action.
And can you save a person using AI and not going in that direction? Are you then responsible for taking that person's life?
Yeah.
Or not?
Are we killing more lives but not using AI?
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's take this ethical question.
Yes.
Let's take this down to earth in a normal corporation where I find around change, people seem on middle manager level, the safe choice is to I duck the question, I don't say anything, as this was some kind of, I didn't make a choice. But essentially, not doing anything is the no choice to change or to this.
Yes.
And I think here lies a real big challenge in our leadership today, that this is okay, that we are not recognizing that the inaction, there should be accountability for inaction. To do nothing, to duck the question, is essentially saying no.
Yeah. And why is that morally okay?
Why is that morally okay? Because I would say in Swedish society, it's morally okay right now. Or this is culture. Is that fair? Or is it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a way of talking about it. Because what's the difference between animals and humans is that you have a choice and you can think about it. You can think about responsibility. So if you have a freedom of choosing, you also have the responsibility of your choosing or not choosing. And if you have a way of thinking about it, then you are responsible. But the interesting thing about ethics and moral, that it's some way of what's normal and not. So if you are going to talk about ethics, you have to talk about what's normal and what's like the new normal. And today with COVID, we have a lot of talk about the new normal. And basically what's happened is that our behaviors have started to change our values and our thought about things. And that's how you change ethics and moral issues.
But this is maybe one of these key mechanisms we are talking about, to find the levers, which is on a cultural level, I guess, in a society or in a company.
Yeah. Well,
or is it somewhere else? Is it
it's culture. It's culture. It's always culture. But it's perhaps when you behave as a human, you want to be liked. So you use the ethics around you, but you're not aware of it in everyday time. But you always want people to like you. That's why I'm nervous about talking in English, because I'm like, well, this is not my field in my day life, but it's our normal here, and then I have a question about it in my head. But if I would talk to Swedish to you, then you would think I was strange in this setting, right?
I'm changing the normal.
Because it was our deal, or in some way.
So ethics is quite closely related to the cultural values or norms in whatever group or society you're in. And they are, of course, maybe a little bit different than in different parts of the world, of course.
Of course. And then if you talk about the new normal using data, so if we take it to that level, what happens when we create a way of work with data and AI and start to work in a different way because we have help with the AI systems or something like that? What happens then to our thoughts about our work? And what happens with those who doesn't use AI in their work? Are we going to have a value shift then? And how is our, how are we going to see how we use time? That's also a philosophical question that you discuss a lot when you are talking about ethics. Who are doing it? What time mean? And who is above who? Stuff like that.
And speaking more about data usage and perhaps thinking more about like different age groups. Some millennials and younger people are used to using Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and whatnot every day, not really caring about sharing the data that they have.
But are millennials? They are like 38. So are they young?
I'm very old guy. Sorry for that. Okay, so younger than millennials.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Generation Z.
Are we set now? Generation X.
Yeah. So sorry.
But how do you see that happening in the future? Do you think there is like an inflation, so to speak, in privacy and data safety, that it will be more a norm in the society that data is everywhere and shared with everyone, and that's acceptable? Or do you think it will actually have increased regulation going forward, so it actually will be more of a data ownership going forward? Or how do you see the future there?
I think it's we can go both way, and it's a very hard question because we have talked about it a lot at work. Are we seeing more regulations and privacy settings like that? But still, we as Swedes, we are really used to sharing data, and we don't know it. We just do it. It's like once again, personnumret. I can say it to you and to everybody, and you can probably find it on the internet if you search deep. But we also have that question that we don't want anyone to know my privacy. So it's a hard question. I think we have to talk about what we want, how we want to use our personal data, and have a discussion on where we draw the lines, because you also. You need to have integrity of yourself. So the question is where does it stop?
So where is the line then? So let's draw up some examples. So we have in China, for example, the police using these kind of Google Glass things, and they have facial recognition, and they can just identify people, and they have this kind of wall of shame, if you heard about them.
Gamification of social control.
And you
social
can point
credit
out
scores and
people,
whatnot. So many things. And basically, if you cross like a cross-section over the street and jaywalk, they can automatically identify you, and you put it up on a wall of shame, and you can even automatically.
But is it true? Like you have your
fine.
You have your personal avatar in terms of social or society index, and that actually can make you get jobs or lose jobs, or is that true?
But let me make a point here, because we have one extreme use of data and AI in for example some parts of China, and some of it is a bit inflated by media, I must say. I must defend also some of the Western press and the Chinese press, to make sure that we have an objective view of this. And even to give an example, I mean, even in Sweden we had facial recognition in this kind of gymnasieskola in Sollefteå.
Yes, we know.
And they got fined, with GDPR because they broke the regulation at that point. But we tried as well to use facial recognition and identify people like that. So perhaps we shouldn't, brag too much about ourselves.
We should be careful.
So do you think this is, this is across the line right now, at least for us in Western or in Europe and Sweden? Do you think it will continue to be that, or do you think it will be a normal day activity that cameras in schools will identify this is a drug dealer, it's not really a student in the school, and that will be something that alerts security or something if they come into the school area?
I should go back to the value question again then, and ask why it's normal in China to do that, because they also accept it. And we in Sweden, we can ask the question, do they have a choice? But I think I believe this, there are people in China that likes the way they have their society. And that's a hard question for us, because we don't want that kind of society. Right. That's why we have this democracy and question about how do we want to live our lives. But with that said, GDPR is a problem when we want to use the new technology as face recognition, as in that school that you are mentioning. And what we want to do in Sweden is that we are allowed to try out that kind of technology and then look at our laws and regulations system and see how can we make this okay in a Swedish way. Right. That prevent us to have that wall of shame, because we don't like that in our society yet. I hope never, if you ask me. But if you want to talk to ethics, you have to be like, you don't have any own ideas. If you have to have a
public shaming is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, right? Probably not, because there's a problem with that anyway. So the question in Sweden is how can we explore these new technologies and try to find our way in this? And we have to be very we have to take this work that we have to use personal data about you in our social systems and the public sector in a way that makes you still believe in our democracy.
Right.
So the question is at hand is if you don't use it and transform the public sector in a way that the voters like, then perhaps you will have another story. So,
but it's several difficult questions here. It's the sort of the catch-22. Can we need to try and experiment to move this forward, but the law doesn't allow us, and GDPR is a good example here, where it's sort of, we also, I think, needs to get the rätta prejudikaten, the case
Precedent.
law happening,
Yes.
the precedents, because right now it's
the sandboxes.
right now I'm actually exploring exactly these topics right now, and we are talking about, can we do a sandbox? We can try this out, and actually, no, you can't. And we have this internal discussion in organizations.
Why can't you have sandboxes in your business?
They referring our privacy officers referring to GDPR.
Yeah.
So this now becomes I have now seen several different interpretations, the letter of the law towards, looking at sort of, is this within the purpose of the data?
Yeah.
So, and where I now seen several different organizations really different in interpretation on this, which is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Because right now, we need to be able to explore and understand what data we have. Yes, but you can't do that without stating what you should use it for. Catch-22. Okay, then I can put up an hypothesis, and then so all of a sudden we end up in this conversation like very traditional old school waterfall project management that I need to do a requirement specification even to get started for back in utredningar and pre-studies for 6 months, even to understand something that it would take me 2 weeks to understand if something is feasible or not.
Yeah.
So this is a real challenge now, that we need this case law, I think, as a way to get out of the hole.
Totally agree. That's our one of our biggest missions that we work on at SKR.
Yeah.
To make that possible, we have to have sandboxes in public sector and in the industry as well.
Of course, we need to have sandboxes.
It's the only way.
And of course, what becomes a little bit frustrating when you're doing this on a very operational level is that this is going on around you all over the place in your own organization, but it's done in a different way, right? And then now we're trying to do it industrialized. We're trying to do the right thing. I'm actually trying to work correctly, compliantly, and it's sort of, then you get stuck. And at the same time, so what I'm saying is we are filtering mosquitoes and sleeping through elephants through the window. Yeah.
But if you were to make the GDPR all over again, what would you do?
That's an awesome question. I wish we could really. I mean, regulation
it's
is
another after work, perhaps.
And I'd love to also move into perhaps a related topic then, and one of my favorite topics, which is Elon Musk and his view on AI, and it's kind of interesting, especially when it talks about regulation.
Yeah, and you really love Elon Musk.
Yeah,
I do actually.
It's
a love story.
Okay, so the framing, I do the framing when we need to talk to Elon Musk. If we were, how were you saying it? If we compare Leonardo da Vinci in his time versus Elon Musk in this time, you said it. I'm sorry, own up to it now, man. Are they on the same level?
That's a good question.
Do you think so?
Ooh, I have to. Okay, so yeah, sure. They are
sorry, guy.
In a different dimension, of course, and different times. But it would be really interesting to see, what would Leonardo da Vinci do in these times,
and
Elon Musk in those times.
Yes.
That was the story.
That would be super interesting to see.
Yeah.
But just to go back to regulation, because I think it's an important topic, and then I want to, before we end, also touch a bit on religion and that topic as well, if we have some time for that. But regulation, as to say, it can be done poorly, and it can be done in a good way. And done poorly can mean it's not enough regulation or it's too much regulation, right? I hope you agree so far.
Yeah.
And GDPR is certainly not perhaps perfectly implemented, but had good intentions. And I hope you also agree with that. So that said, what is really the best way to improve regulation going forward? We know there is happening a lot in EU right now with new regulation coming in place in this year and so forth. Do you have any thoughts about regulation? Especially, I can imagine SKR, this is a very important one, given how sensitive data and important fields and high-risk applications of AI, as EU calls it, that you have in SKR applications. How should we improve regulation to make SKR more efficient in 10 years? Yeah,
we have to answer the question what we mean by that. So when you say it's a high risk, what do we mean by high risk? Because sometimes we have the feeling of being afraid of the AI because we don't know what it is. So we interpret that everything is high risk. So you have to, answer the question, what do we mean by that? Yeah. And I think that regulation from EU is have a problem with it's too fluffy in a way. Yeah, exactly. But so we have to have, a way of working with this so we can have the cases, again, the sandboxes that interpret what we mean by high risk and low risk and the gray zones, of course. And we have also to decide if we want to use AI. It's like the cabinet question. Do we want it?
and I think
and then we have to understand what it is, because I think we want it, but then we have to, have a way of using the technology and see what's happened in our way of working and the field of what's important for us humans to take care of and protect, and then take a step.
You were into this before, that it's not actually nations that is sort of moving ahead. It's some tech giants, and clearly the regulation and however it works today, the way we have it today, I think it's actually increasing this data and AI divide, because the more knowledgeable you are exactly on what you're doing, you can manage the GDPR regulations. So it's more about our illiteracy in truly understanding the technology that makes us hesitant in what we do. While if you go to the tech giants, they can isolate the problem and the question by the law and fix it, and even enter it into their 20-page agreement.
Of course,
that you sign. So this
isn't it about risk management then? Perhaps to be better, because I think that if you manage GDPR, you are good of having like a risk assessment of your information and good on interpreting what is information to be.
And isn't this the core?
Careful about
all business? Public sector maybe not, but all business is risk. There is a beta in terms of what's the return on your investment. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. And here we want to do something which is a conscious human, good for human risk in business. So there is never zero risk.
No.
And even if you have GDPR, the same risks has existed forever. And all the big security breaches, they are very far that has been sort of technology oriented, but in the end, it's more people oriented. Normal theft.
And just to comment a bit what you said as well, I mean, for the big tech giants, that they know not only how to use AI, they know exactly how to work with regulation. Exactly. They have the big legal teams necessary to actually fulfill all the requirements and comply with all the regulations. Whereas normal companies and companies not really used to using data and AI have nothing. So they actually increase the AI
regulation
divide,
has right now is accelerating the divide right now, unfortunately.
But I think back to AI Sweden, we have a big opportunity there to have the legal teams for the small companies and also have the legal team for public sector or the collaboration between the both of them. So because of course it's about managing the risks and also the regulation there is. And we also say this to our municipalities because we have a network about how to use AI. And then our key take is you have to try, and you can do so much with automation today inside of the laws.
Exactly. There is surprisingly.
So you can do.
As long as you my usual way of phrasing this is basically you shouldn't regulate the technology itself, but the effects of it.
Exactly.
So it's really what you use it for. And if it can kill someone, then it's important. So self-driving cars probably should have, higher regulation than Spotify recommended music.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get really angry if you get recommended music, but perhaps you won't die from it. I'm not sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we? I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I would love to have some discussion about religion. And
let's go with that as our last topic for today.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And this is not easy to get into, but let me try to start to set something up. And we have the concept of singularity, which basically means at some point in the future, and this is basically from the Terminator, and you can see these kind of movies, at some point in the future, there will be a time where we have a level of intelligence in a system that supersedes that of humans. And we already have that today, but for very narrow tasks. But there will be a time where it basically doesn't really require humans to do that and to develop new skills. So that can be a potential dangerous thing, and that is why Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk and many other people say things like, AI is the last innovation that humans ever will do, and these kind of things. Yes. I don't really want to boast that kind of thinking, but that also, comes a bit into what is really God in that situation. What's your, how do you see a future where perhaps we have machines? We know that machines can play chess much better than humans today, and Go and StarCraft and whatnot. And that is continuing to accelerate in an exponential rate. And how do you connect that to your view of religion and what God is, and how will a computer ever be connected to God in some way? Yeah,
big question. You have to start with the question: what do you mean by God? Is it a God with a big G or a small g?
Yeah.
Is it like something that you relate to as like a force, or is it more like something that's a way of
faith?
Yeah, faith and love and compassion and stuff like that.
Do you think an AI will ever feel love?
No, I think not. I think AI always going to be something different from humans. That's my thought. I don't know. I can be wrong, of course. But I think you have to have that question first. What do you mean by God? And if you mean, as I think about it, that God is like a force of good things and a force of what makes people love each other and not kill each other, or feel happy, or have a meaning. And then if we go back to the question, what happens if the machines take over our way of innovate, because they do it anyway, and they are so fast, blah, blah, blah. Can you compare it to something that already has happened in the history of men? Have we ever been through a similar change? Perhaps we have.
Yeah. What are you thinking about?
Perhaps when we were introducing books in the medieval.
Right.
Then we have like a very interesting scriptures about now it's the end of human, and now we are going to stop talking to each other. And you can also see that they wanted to regulate how many hours you were supposed to read, and that information overload was a problem, you thought, if you had one book to read. And today we can laugh about that. So my point is, I think that the being a human, you will always be curious, because that's what humans is. And you will always have the choice of love or hate, to destroy or create. And if we have more time, if the robots or a machine are doing our stuff, what would we do?
Love or hate.
Love or hate. Yeah. So the question is, how can God, if we think that God is the creation or the way that we create, can God kill himself or itself by us human not relate to that force of love or hate? So that's
big question.
Yeah, that's the funny part of talking about the stuff like that. That it's really opens up a window of opportunities. And today we don't really have a way of talking about these big questions and what happens when and what is God or stuff like that in an easier way. I really appreciate you telling me your thoughts, but it's rare.
It is.
Very good question.
I think something in between the line. What I'm thinking is, isn't this been a constant evolution of from medieval times? What is God? What is the higher being? How do we view God and Christianity and stuff like this in the medieval times, etc., etc. So, isn't this also as part of the human evolution so far that are always having faith in something or believing in something is there, but it has evolved over time. And maybe we don't see it, but you clearly see it when we look at the different centuries or the medieval times. So probably there will be a notion of God or faith and all this, but it probably takes new forms that it is hard for us to define now. Like in the medieval times, they wouldn't be able to define like we do today.
No, that's true. And that's also important to set it in different contexts.
Yes.
And throughout the world, you have also a different way of looking at religious questions. And, you have something in the USA that's called the civil religion. And it's like when Barack Obama says, God bless you all. And it's nothing wrong with that or even strange. It's a way of thinking.
Expression.
And you relate to it. And you don't ask, which church should you
bless me now?
No. But in Swedish, that would be really awkward.
We don't have this language.
In my workplace, my colleagues, they're used to me having like religious jokes or something like that, or saying bless you all in some way. And they are like moving around and think it's a bit awkward, of course, but I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. I actually have a lot of questions. I would love to have more time to discuss about this. I think it's so important thing to do. But I think the time is also a bit running up. So I'd like to start to close up a bit. And let me start. The elements of AI, that's a course available for free for anyone, right?
Elements of AI free for everyone. And the course that SKR and AI Sweden and Governo has is AI for leaders and officers in
and they can find it in ai.se or at
SKR?
And
SKR. And it's not for free, but it's a small fee.
Yeah, okay. Awesome.
And we use that to develop new courses, of course.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's happening in your life coming months and years? Do you have any?
Oh, big. Thoughts? Yeah, I have big plans. I'm going to sail around Gotland in the summertime.
Yeah, right.
No, I think it's really important to have hobbies and, enjoy life. You have just one. So I hope I will do that. And I hope I can continue to give to the society in any way, in some way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Such an awesome to have you here today and speaking to you. If you were to recommend someone that you would like to have as a guest here, who would you recommend?
Oh, I love Jeanette Nilsson, who has helped us with the AI agenda. I would love to have her as a guest, of course. And then I have a personal idol and a former boss, Ann Helenius, that I just love.
Awesome.
She's really cool.
That sounds great. So I think with that, Henrik, we should.
I think it's time to round it off.
Yes.
And thanks for coming and being part of this premiere show.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I hope we can continue the religious discussion at some point,
yes,
informally or on or off camera, so to speak. That would be really fun, I think.